I mean, it's amazing to say this to people, but in World War II, you have one of the best examples of a centrally planned economy that you'll ever likely see. In effect, what Roosevelt did and what the Roosevelt administration did was to bring all the corporate heads to Washington to say, okay, you do what you can do very well, which is corporations don't actually like the free market. Corporations organize everything within the corporation along lines of sophisticated planning techniques, and there are all sorts of mechanisms for doing this, so that corporations know how to centrally plan their activities. And what Roosevelt was doing in World War II was to bringing that capacity to the federal government, and then saying, well, you also have to collaborate with each other in this war effort. And so there was a great deal of agitation going on around how to do that. So in effect, what people were experiencing was a government-directed economy in which corporations were powerful because they were still powerful entities within it, but nevertheless they were submitting, if you like, to a national planned agenda. Now, in addition to that, of course, the United States was in alliance with the communists, was in alliance with the Soviet Union, and the Soviets played a very, very important role in the defeat of fascism. So that here's the situation. And during World War II, there was a scarcity of labor, and so you went from a surplus of labor in the 1930s to a scarcity of labor. The unions became much stronger. There were quite a lot of strikes, and they were starting to feel that they had some power. So what the US saw was a situation where it had to get the economy going in the way that Louis Bonaparte had followed. At the same time as it had to do something about this particular kind of ideology which was creeping in, that's kind of said the government direction is a good thing, government direction helps, government can be for the people and by the people, and all those kinds of rhetorics. And this was something that was profoundly disturbing to the corporate heads and the bourgeoisie, in exactly the same way the sort of agitation that occurred in 1848 was so disturbing for the bourgeois classes in Paris at that time. So what do you have? You have this situation then, and the first stress is then, to what degree could the US actually control the ideology of the period? And there was a huge assault. And it came from different directions. We typically kind of refer to McCarthyism, but before McCarthyism, there was something called the House of Un-American Activities Committee, which was actually set up in 1938, it turns out. And it was set up to really investigate the influence of Nazi ideology and communist ideology. But by the time you get to 1942, the whole kind of question of Nazi ideology is out the window. Yeah, that's all kind of that's what the fight is about. But the communist one starts to become significant because we're in alliance with the communists and all the rest of it. And so the kind of question of how to deal with socialist-leaning thinking and New Deal thinking and pushing of centralized planning and centralized model and all the rest of it, that all became a rather significant kind of issue.